Here we go. We here live. Interview number 2, Mr. Barr. How you doing?
Doing all right, man. How you doing?
Good to see you again, man. Got some new pressing questions for you. Some new things have arrived, and
Yeah.
first of all, I'm gonna ask you about. We got a couple leaders in our town, or district, or neighborhood, or whatever it may be, in these meetings. We've seen one where they keep getting out of hand. We seeing emotions. We seeing. I don't understand what's going on. Sometimes I feel like I'm looking at kids up here or something like that. It's a lot of stuff I don't like. Maybe it's a lot of stuff I don't know. I just want to know, your take on what you think this is and the consequences of our leaders, showing this type of behavior to the city.
Well, first and foremost, it's wrong on both sides. I say it all the time. Anytime that you have open aggression like that, anytime you have open defiance like that, that's deeper than what you just see on the surface. It's a lot more embedded into that. It's a lot more, deeply rooted into that, and that just comes from bickering.
Right.
They truly have a disdain for each other because I believe that both sides are truly just in it for themselves, and you're never going to get people to work together and come to a common goal if that's not their motive.
Right.
If their motive is ulterior, if they have some other gain, whether it be personal or
If any, what would you say their motives are?
well, I mean, it's greed basically, and it's to stay in place, to stay in the position that they're in, to keep the lifestyle that they have, to keep the things that they've attained.
Yeah.
And for anyone else to come up and try to attain the same things is it's futile. There's none going. Right. And obviously, these two factions have agendas in which they're trying to push, and the people just get lost in the middle, and that's when you see the aggression like that, because they're both passionate about what they're trying to do. And there's no way I could be objective or subjective and say that maybe the motives are different. Maybe it is for the people. Maybe it is for this or that. But it actually isn't.
Yeah.
It's plain to see that they're fighting to hold on to something.
Something's wrong.
Right. And they're fighting to hold on to it. And they're gonna behave whatever way to get it, and that's what
That's what
and
it's
that's
about.
sad, and that's sad, because you have one side, you just take Mr. Jordan for example. All right, he was allowed to say what he wanted to say, in all fairness. If you're gonna be fair about it, he was allowed to say what he wanted to say, and him and Miss Glenn.
Right.
Actually, Ms. Glenn was cut off because Mr. McCoy wanted to go into what's called an executive session, which they can't. Executive session only applies to court proceedings. That wasn't a court proceeding. That is a meeting, a public body. And according to the open law meeting, which was just amended this year, there is no such thing as an executive session, a closed session, or anything when it comes to a meeting of a public body or elected officials. But for the most part, both parties were allowed to say what they wanted to say. And when it came time to vote, Mr. Jordan was asked to be quiet. He did not. He continued to say what he wanted to say, which you could say he had every right to do, But in the interest of doing things right and moving the process along, he said what he had to say. He could have left it alone, because the vote is what matters in the end anyway.
Right.
The vote is going to be this or whatever, no matter what he
Exactly.
says anyway. So he could have left it alone, and then it would have been through. All right. Now going to Mr. Stevenson on his side. Of course, like I said, this person, you're asking them to be quiet. A motion has been put on the floor to do such and do such.
Who asked who to be quiet?
Mr. Stevenson asked Mr. Jordan. He was like, hey, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's it. We're finna move on. Hey, sit down. Let's go. Move on. Such and such. And you've been asking and asking and asking. Now, as a president, as a person of some standing, you're supposed to behave a certain way.
Right.
But we're human. And when the person's been pushed and pushed and pushed, see, nobody's looking at the fact that, maybe he was provoked. We have to remember the word provoke. You can't provoke someone. Now, that person may or probably should be strong enough to resist it, but what if they're not? They're human.
Right.
That's okay, because it happens, especially when you're being pushed and being pushed. So obviously, you've been pushed, and again, this is something that's deep-rooted, as I said earlier. It's something that's developed over time, and there have been plenty of outbursts in the media. And I've seen on many occasions where Mr. Jordan was allowed to say what he wanted to say and do what he wanted to do. On the occasion when I went, he had some words with me. He was allowed to say what he wanted to say to me, however derogatory. And he wasn't, quailed about it or quieted about it. He was able to. So we've seen over time that there have been altercation where this outburst hasn't happened. So obviously there's been a build-up there. And I guess at this meeting, the build-up, it boiled over. Of course, as president, by the book, he was supposed, he could have just let Mr. Jordan say what he wanted to say, talk as much as he wanted to, because in the end, the vote is the only thing that matters. Exactly. So yeah, he could have sat back, let Mr. Jordan say what he wanted to say, no matter how long it would have took him, would have ran the meeting the whole time, but he could have let him done that, and that would have avoided that situation. Right. But these are just scenarios to avoid what happened.
And what happened? What do you think? Like, what are going to be the consequences of us? The city, like, this is a city they're running here.
Right.
Well, what's going to be the outcome of all this constantly?
To finish that thought, the main thing is that, like, just to go back and delve into the situation. All right. It was brought before the board that, well, for one, his qualification was challenged. His qualification was challenged by Ms. Glenn. All right. Once she did that, he didn't have present with him at this interview or at this presentation when he's applying for this job. He didn't have his GED, which he has. He has a GED. He didn't have any of his documentation or qualification or resume. He didn't have anything with him. Right. Now, for the sake of getting a job, or at any time, anybody else would have to have that. Anytime you go to get a job, they tell you have to have your credentials, you have to have your educational background, your work history, your resume. You have to have all that.
Yeah, including the drug test.
To be fair,
usually.
Mr. Moore did not have that. He had none of that. He was just sitting there.
Yeah.
All right. Also, to be fair, Ms. Glenn, it was her right to question that, and he is supposed to have that. So if you're at a job interview, you're supposed to have the thing it takes, but
right.
don't want to dwell on that. Moving on to the next point, the fact that the mayor did say that she would not hire anyone in the department. She said it in the paper, not only with Mr. Eduardo Wright standing up and said that he heard her say it, but she acknowledged this when the story first broke, when they were trying to hire Rob Banks. She said, I'm not going in the department. It's in the newspaper.
Right.
If we go back and search the articles, we can see it.
I read that.
All right? And so, and this is not the first time the mayor has contradicted herself. Just being fair, she's contradicted herself before, in the situation when Mr. Purnell, when he was the police chief, when he decreased the speed limit and put a stop sign up on the back road going to, I think that's Sergeant Pittman Road. I'm not sure if I'm wrong, but the back road going to Walmart, behind Walgreens, behind Taco Bell.
When they put all that,
Okay, when the story first broke of him doing it, again, this is all documented. You can go and see what she agreed with him. She was like, well, yes, isn't it our job to protect the people? And this is to protect the people, so isn't that? So she was okay with it. Well, a couple of days later, when some of her constituents put forth a petition, she was quoted in the paper as saying she had no idea about it. And here are two direct contradictions in the newspaper, in the local newspaper.
Right.
And here it happens again. She did say that she would not hire anyone from the police department. So to then hire someone from the police department, is just a bad taste.
Yeah.
It's just not. Right is right.
Right.
And that's not right. So Mrs. Glenn and Mr. Jordan, they did have a valid point on that, because that was wrong.
Right.
The fact that you would go and just hire someone in the department and didn't even interview anyone else. Didn't even give these people an opportunity to interview.
And this is a major position.
And this is the head position.
Right.
And that was wrong. And I believe in cause and effect. I don't believe in looking at the resulting effects, the multiplying effects from one single cause. See, you look at Mr. Stevenson's reaction, you look at the whole, how the meeting went. What was the cause of all of this?
Yeah.
You got to look at the cause. The cause was, it wasn't done right at first. The mayor didn't do what she was supposed to do at first. She should have had an open interview process.
Right.
You didn't have to hire them. But you could have had an open interview process. That way,
you had to give them a chance.
You should have done it right from the beginning.
Right.
So this all falls on the mayor.
Yeah.
And that's not, I don't have anything against her, and I shouldn't have to say that, but, this is just what it is.
Yeah.
That's point blank. This falls on her because she did not do it right from the beginning. If you were not going to interview anyone from the police department, then you shouldn't have hired anyone from the police department.
Right.
But from what I can concur, I don't believe that, that was her decision alone.
Right.
And anytime, you have someone who's contradicting themselves so much, obviously that shows that, other ideas and influence are coming from, from different places.
Yeah.
So I feel like when they had Rob Banks, they felt like they had a lock because, hey, this is going to happen. This is who we want in place. Because again, we do know there are two factions.
Right.
There's this side and there's that side.
Of course.
So on this side, it was like, hey, this is who we want in there. And that's what she was like, okay, well, this is my candidate. And you could tell that it wasn't researched because she didn't know the loophole that kept him from being there. If he had really been vetted, that's what that process is called when you're trying to select someone to be in the political position, not political, but to put forth to be in the position, you vet them. And in the vetting process, you find out the details. What's stopping him? What's not stopping him? This and that, this and that.
Right.
I mean, for Christ's sakes, he's already an elected official.
Yeah.
It didn't cross your mind at no time to say, well, hey, which makes you think, well, wait a minute, these people can't be that ignorant. Maybe they knew this and tried to slide it by anyway, thinking that someone else wouldn't say anything.
Exactly.
And as much as I don't agree with Mr. Jordan a lot, I believe he's wrong about a lot of stuff, but this is one situation where he proved he was needed.
Yeah.
Because he was the one who brought that to the light that this man cannot fulfill his job, Of course, I knew it myself, but, I've had my dealings with them. Who am I to go up and say, it wouldn't have meant nothing coming from me.
Right.
So, kudos to Mr. Jordan. He was there
He was on
finally
that. Right.
when he needed to be about something that he needed to be there about. So, that entire situation was not done right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Because they felt like they already had someone who they wanted to be in that position.
Exactly.
And, this is what you get. Those are the consequences.
Yeah.
When you don't perform right on this end, it all comes out on this end.
Right.
So you can't look at what just happened at the meeting and start putting things at these people. These people would have never acted like that if the before mentioned events would have never happened. Cause and effect.
Right.
It's pretty much just that simple. And that's just and going back to the chief now, who we have, Mr. Moore. Like I said, they shouldn't have, once they found out that happened, that was a contradiction in that, the board, right then they should have said, well, you know what? Since we're having so much problem with this, let's table it. Let's come back to it.
Right. Let's think about it.
Let's think about it.
Right.
Now, that's common sense.
Makes sense to me.
You have a problem with something. Why are you going to go ahead and continue with this?
Right.
And you've seen there's been an altercation or problem.
Right. Let's check it out. That's
Again,
what happens to me.
Right.
When
now,
I try to get a job.
Right. Now, not to point fingers, but just looking at it like, okay, that means that the board had already had their minds made up.
Right.
Meaning that, okay, wow.
This has been thought about before.
I mean, this has already been planned.
Right.
This has already been put forth. Like, you see that these other people have not been given a chance.
Right.
I mean, they weren't even given a chance. Whether you would have picked them or not, at least give them a chance. That's all that matters. People just want hope.
Right.
You didn't even have to give them the job. But just the fact that you allowed them to apply for it would have, but again,
it could have been the threat of the credentials getting mashed up.
No, I'm gonna tell you what it is. It's throwing blows. See, that was a blow. Like I said, we have two factions here. This happens, so this happens. Everything that's going on in our situation here is not for no reason. It's by design.
Yeah.
Different sides are taking punches at one another. You know, you see the school board get kicked off in the county.
Yeah.
All right, now you see the school superintendent in the city schools on trial for stuff. You know, getting this name bashed. All right, Miss Dot wins the election. Boom, she gets challenged.
Right.
You know, throwing punches.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
the city. You know, the chief retires and Mr. Langdon does what he does.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay, well, we're not going to even interview him. Everybody's throwing punches. That's why nothing's being done right, because it's all vindictive. And you know, even on the part of the board, obviously the board already had their minds made up. You know, that they didn't even want to consider anybody from the, you know, even give them a chance to, and that was just totally wrong for them to go ahead and make that appointment without giving everybody else at least an opportunity. You know, it goes back to what I say all the time. You know, I believe it's corruption. You know,
could you speculate on what's so important about Mr. Moore becoming the chief?
Well, I mean, because again, you know, he's the selection for a particular faction, and so you know, it's not that he's not so important about him. He's just the next best thing.
Right. That's who they want.
He's just right. You know, we can put this person in there to keep things going how we want it to go.
Yeah.
You
This
know?
is our guy.
Right. This is our guy. Just like with the other side.
Yeah.
They want to put that person in there
Right.
so they can, you know, get things. But again, nobody's doing it for who?
The people.
The people.
The community.
The people are constantly left out of this. Why? Because all the laws still stay the same, no matter who's in there. Young black men are still gonna get arrested for violence crimes, non-victimless crimes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, victimless crimes. You know, nothing's gonna change. That's because both factions want to get that person in, so that, you know, they can have this position. It's just like playing chess. You know, you want to be the dominating team, and you know, right now the other team is out dominating them on the supervisory board. You know, on the city council, in the schools. So you know, it's a war here.
It's terrible.
And you know, the people are caught up in the middle of it.
Suffering.
But it's wrongdoing on both sides, and until that comes to a head, until it stops, it's gonna continue.
Terrible thing.
Now, you know, and the chief now, you know, like I said, I believe it's just like, you know, the system is still going to change. I don't believe he's going to get in that change. Thing, like I said, he's a selection for a certain faction, so a certain, you know. So you know,
it'll be going the way it's been going.
Things will proceed as usual, you know.
No job.
Carry on, you know. Yeah, nothing's going to change until, you know, until that changes. But I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. But this is just my speculation. You know? 30, 40 years. Matter of fact, things are changing for the worse. So I take that back. I was wrong about that. Things will change. They will decline. They will continue to decline as it has declined now. And
Greenwood, what can we do?
It's clear. You know, it's point blank in your face. When you see your leadership at odds like that, can't be good for you. They don't even care about you. You know, they're concerned about what they're trying to get in and what they're trying to do.
Right.
And you know, there's no concern for the people, and it hurts.
Yeah.
It does hurt. And until, you know, until they're gone, they die off or they retire, it's just going to get worse. You know, nothing's going to get better.
I'm thinking their kids or their selected man or who's ever next in the faction is just going to get
Pretty
the job
much,
again.
it is, you know.
We can't even wait on them to die.
Right. You know, that's the system, man. You know, it's a perpetual thing, which means that people have been in positions and where they're at forever.
Yeah.
This family, you know, this entire family's over always had this. These type of people will always get these things.
Yeah.
The other type of people will not. You know, that's the 10%.
Yeah.
That they call it the talented 10. W.E.B. Du Bois, he was the first person to actually make it known. He said when it comes to the black race, or as I like to say, races of poverty, I don't like to use color, races of poverty, you're going to have what's called a talented 10. 10% of that race is going to excel, do great, do fine, no matter what their situation is. I mean, no matter what, no matter how hard. And the other 90% will remain in their same situation. And the catch is that 10% will never come back and, you know, try to help that 90 in the right way. They will only help that 90 to stay exactly where they are, which is what we have today. Your average person growing up out here in the ghetto is not going to make it to these positions in these places. It's only the exceptions that will. And once the exceptions make it, they have such a feeling of self-worth that they feel everybody should take the road they took. And if you don't take the road I took, then you deserve to be where you are. Yeah. And that's what we have. Fred Hampton called it one time black imperialism.
Black imperialism.
And that's pretty much what it is. Until that 10% allows everybody else to come up, the crab in the bucket theory, or the crab in the bucket idiom. It's not that people are in the bucket pulling you down. People have already made it out of the bucket, and they're standing around the edges of it, kicking you down. Keeping you in.
Making calls with the law.
Right, because if they let you out, then, you might take their place. And they don't want to be back in that bucket. But they don't understand that there's room around the edge for everybody. You can bring everybody out of the bucket.
Yeah, but I don't think they care about that.
They won't, because, they've been systematically designed through education, through media, TV, whatever, that this is how things are supposed to be.
Right.
People are supposed to die together. You're not supposed to try to stop that, because it's going to happen because of the type of people that they are. And they hide behind the phrases of home has to do it, and that's one of their favorite phrases. Home has to do it. This has to happen. Yeah. And you have what we have today, which again goes back to your leadership.
Yeah.
It's no different than two people fighting out in the street shooting at each other. They can't look at these young men shooting at each other out here on the parks and stuff and point a finger at them when they're in suits and ties doing the same exact thing.
Right.
It's the same. It's the same.
Exactly. War all over.
It's war.
Gang.
It's war.
Gang
You just,
violence.
You just have a different statue and you just make it look a little better. So
Yeah.
it's okay.
You got the tag, the badge.
Right.
So you can do
It's
it.
still war. They're just like the death penalty. You're still killing somebody.
Right.
It's still murder. How you look at it,
Right.
you're still taking somebody's life against their will.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
murder, but it's okay when they do it. And it just goes back to the same thing. Double standards.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how would you get a policy in place? Sort of, I guess if you would say like maybe a jail's law, or however the law works. Just this thing right here, where when the police takes the money of drug dealers and
Right.
big time crime guys, when they take the cars and the houses and all the money, I would like that money to go back into the community where the poorest people are, right there where, the children of these drug addicts or
That's right.
the families of these drug addicts. They could get this money back in their community and, buy clothes with it or food or whatever they were supposed to be doing with it.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
That is a profound idea. That is a great idea.
Yeah, I think that should be, and I think it'll cut down on a lot of crookedness out here trying to get that money.
Right. The main thing is having the right type of, education. And I don't mean school and, I'm talking about education on how to treat people, how to be good to people, Yeah. You got to know how to treat people. You got to know how things go, what you're supposed to do with stuff. Because they could take that same money that other people are getting now and put it into that fund and have some of the same type of people stealing.
Right.
So you have to have the right type of people in these positions, for one. And for two, they're not going to do that, sir, because it would make a difference.
That would make a hell of a difference. Yeah.
It would make a profound change, a drastic change in seeing all the money that they confiscate from, drug dealers go back into the same community with, helping dilapidated housing,
Right.
helping feed families, helping people actually better themselves, doing things to actually better. You can't keep giving people without the proper education on what you're giving them and what to do with it.
Yeah, what it's for.
Put this money back into classes to educate people in these neighborhoods about things that they don't know. There's a lot of things that they don't know that they miss out on because this is all they know is what's in their area.
Right.
So put that money back into classes on educating them about things like that. You know, teaching them how to fish instead of giving them a fish.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not going to happen for one because you know the people who are taking the money, the police officers, they grease their pockets.
Right. Like
They take their cuts. The local law enforcement officials.
I think it's like a heightened bonus you get. The more
It
you
is.
find, the bigger your pot is. So that pushes the police
I mean,
officers.
it does, and then you know they're able to take it in and then redistribute it. You
Yeah.
know, because you know
Put it
that's-
right back
Be
on
being
the
fair
street.
about it.
Right.
You know that's what goes on. Even here in
Exactly.
Greenwood, even here in LaFleur County, that's just a matter of the fact. When these drugs are confiscated, when this money is confiscated, that money is taken, put into the pockets of certain people, and the drugs are taken and redistributed back out into the community, back out to the people by law enforcement.
It's
Why?
been proven.
Because they have to keep these guys fed, keep these guys going, so that they can keep arresting people. Because when you arrest someone, who gets paid for that? Let's just look at the trickle effect or the ripple effect of one person going to jail. Bail bondman gets paid,
Right.
lawyer gets paid,
True.
the jailers get paid for watching them,
Exactly.
the supervisors get paid for watching the jailers,
Right.
the shift captains get paid for watching the supervising other employees,
Right.
the lieutenants get paid, the sheriffs get paid,
Yeah.
the state gets paid,
Yeah.
the private corporation gets paid.
Exactly. The officer who
Everybody
pick you
gets
up.
paid off one person. The gas that you put in the police
The
car,
mechanic who works on the
mechanic.
police
I
car.
mean, it's wow.
The bookkeeper,
The
the
rip-
librarian of the courthouse,
The people
the
checking
list
you
never
in,
stops.
the folks who take your shoes, the people who
Right.
issue you the shoes. I mean, the people they buy the shoes from, are one person going to jail.
Right.
So, I mean, why would you do anything?
Pharmaceutical companies, they give them shots. You stay over 3 days, you got to get a TB shot.
Why would you do anything that's going to prohibit your commodity? You know, I mean, why? Why
That's
stop
an
there?
evil
Why
thing.
would I do something that's going to stop this
You're
cycle?
torturing
It's like an
innocent
assembly line.
people.
You know, an assembly line. You know, every part comes down. It's like an assembly line. You know, as soon as you're born, if you're born into that situation, you're on that assembly line.
Right.
You're gonna grow up not knowing much, probably can't read. All you can do is add.
Yeah.
You're gonna come and go through school, barely get through school, maybe even drop out. You're still on the line.
Right.
You're gonna start doing stuff, get a little record.
Yeah.
Boom, go to jail. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, felon, can't get a job.
Or just
Boom,
minimum
boom, back
wage
into
job.
it with these folks.
Mhm.
So you're either gonna kill some people along the way. You're gonna go to jail a couple times, kill some more folks, go to jail a couple more times, and you know, then eventually you're gonna end up getting killed.
Right.
Boom. Similar.
sure.
Then the next one comes along.
Yeah. Right
Then the
behind.
next one comes along. You know. So why would they do anything to stop that cycle? It's so profitable.
I was thanking Jesus and all, you know, the greater good, a good
Well, I
heart,
mean-
love, and all that.
Yeah, you know.
It doesn't exist in their heart.
Greed. You know,
Money.
corruption, man. Money is, you know,
Look what money make you do.
money makes you do anything. You know, it'll make you forsake your family. And not only that, a lot of times, a lot of people just do it for fame or for notoriety.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be surprised how little it takes to get people to do depraved things
Yeah.
to people, especially the ones closest to them. And we as a people are the best at
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah. You're sure right about that.
No other race, nowhere in the world, nowhere in history and society could ever do us, you know,
The way.
worse than we do us, and that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to your idea, man, that is a profound idea.
If you
but it
brought
would not
that to
happen.
the, oh, so who would you say you bring that
I
idea
mean, you know,
to?
you can bring it up all day, but you know, if
Nah,
nobody, I mean, like it's not going to benefit anyone who is currently in place.
Right.
Like you have to bring up things that's going to benefit these people, who's going to benefit your leadership. If it doesn't benefit your leadership, then they have no interest in it. If they have no way of making a profit off of it, or getting notoriety off of it, or doing something to boost them, then there's no benefit.
And just forget if
To
it
them.
benefit the people.
Right. You know, if anything, they might take it and act on their own, but nothing that's really going to help people is going to get done. You can continue to do the same little charity work, having barbecues, having little giveaways, you know, constantly do this and that, and that's fine, because that's not really helping people to advance.
Yeah.
You know, I say all the time, you know, like with welfare. You know, welfare is, you know, almost like slavery personified.
Yeah.
Or the Willie Lynch theory personified, you know, which is just basically keep the man out the house, have the woman to raise the children, to,
Right.
you know, and it works it doesn't work all the time. Of course, we have single mothers who raise their children, do great. That's fine, but not the not the majority of the time.
Right.
That's not how it's supposed to be. Just because it
yeah.
works doesn't mean you could go across the field and get from here to Chula, but you're not supposed to.
Right.
You got there.
Yeah, but it's not.
But you're supposed to take
not
the
the
highway.
easiest way.
You're supposed to take the road to get there.
Yeah.
You can go across the field and get there, but you're supposed to take the road. So yeah, you can be a single mother and raise a good child, but that's a minority. That's an exception.
Yeah, and that's a terrible thing.
Right.
Keeping
Right.
the father away from the child.
Right. So just moving on. These systems have just these are things that's been put in place to keep people where they are, and our politicians could drastically change that. Like I said, with the welfare system. I think I said this in the last video. I don't know, but if you could attach a person's assistance to their child's performance in school,
Yeah,
this is the only way you get assistance is if your child performs to this level, or you meet all these requirements showing that you are trying to get your child to this level. But that just all goes back to say that our leadership would do so much more than what they're doing, which just goes back to what we first started this conversation about our local city council meeting and the behavior in which they exhibit, which should clearly be a sign of who they are and what they are. And but that's not going to happen. People are going to have their own opinion.
Yeah.
This is just mine. I could totally be wrong. But this is just my view of how I see it, and I try to see it from the most common and basic way possible.
They're
because
obviously greedy. Evil,
selfish.
Yeah,
right. Because if it was about the people, then we would see, there would be more industry. There would be more job training for industry. They would actually focus on that. It kills me when they say, "Oh, well, you want industry, but the people here ain't educated enough." Okay, why don't you fix that?
Right.
Why don't you bring in classes for these people? And then they'll say, "Oh, well, they ain't gonna get it no way." Some of them won't.
Right.
But
some
will. There's a lot of people that's not able to come out from where they're at because the opportunity is not there, because the opportunity is not being provided, because the people who are able to provide the opportunity feel as if everyone in that pool who needs the opportunity provided for does not want that opportunity.
That's the reason they leaving.
To go and find opportunity.
Right, they would be here if it was something here.
Again, how could you sit back and look at this situation and say that you're doing this for the people? How could you look at Greenwood right now and say that our leadership has performed in such a way in the past 2 decades that says that they are all about the people? Can you really look at Greenwood and say that?
I can't say it at all.
And we can point the blame, and because everybody's going to point the finger somewhere because they don't want to assume the blame for it. But the problem is here. You don't have to take the blame for it. Just recognize that the problem is here. And just recognize that you cannot continue to do the same things and get a different result. If anything is ever going to change, the people with the power to change things are going to have to do things a little bit different. The mass of the people who they say need to do better, the homes that need to do better, they're not going to do better. They don't know how to do better. You minority who do know, who have the power, you can affect change because you do know better. But you'll sit back and expect them to do that. How can you expect a 3-year-old to drive?
Right.
It's the same way. A 3-year-old cannot drive.
Right.
You're just gonna say, "Oh well, you got to learn how to drive on your own, 3-year-old." That's not gonna happen. And not to say that people of poverty are 3-year-olds, but that's almost just being honest about it, being fair about it.
Yeah.
That's relative. That correlates to it. Just meaning that they don't know about this certain situation. And I'm just using a 3-year-old to let you know how drastic it is. 3-year-olds don't know a whole lot. So that's just how drastic. That's the gap. That's how big. That's just a representation of how big the gap is of what a lot of these people do not know, which is why the situation is how it is. And then until the leadership takes gets rid of it, man. They gotta come up off of it. They gotta share it. They got to let people eat.
Well, they're not gonna come up off of it.
Everybody has to eat.
Because you told me that that's their bread and butter.
That's right.
So are we just looking at something that'll never change?
Well, eventually it will, because everything has. Napoleon had his time, he failed. The Roman Empire had their time, it failed. So everything has its time. Change is one thing that is inevitable. You cannot prevent it, no matter how hard you try. It is inevitable. And when you try to stop change, eventually you will be moved out of the way. So it's just more of a waiting process for us.
Yeah, is it in our lifetime?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're not going to see the change which we talk about. No, we won't see it. But hopefully, after this previous generation gets out of the way, we can start to build on it.
Right.
We can plant the seeds for it.
Right.
So that maybe 200 to 300, 400 years down the road, then we'll see the mass majority of poverty people, not poverty anymore.
Right.
Like I said, I don't like to use race, but hopefully in that long, you know, the poverty level would be low. It would be reversed. It won't be mass poverty, you know, and minority super wealth. You know, hopefully. But we won't see it. But we need to start on it now, you know, and we can't because we have people in the way, you know, on both sides. I say it all the time. We have people in the way, but they won't be there forever. Either they'll die or they'll retire, you know, something's going to happen. And when that happens, we have to be here, the people who know, the people who, you know, we have to be here to take those positions. Because it doesn't take a rocket scientist, you know. I heard a politician say from Arkansas one time, he said, you don't have to pass an IQ test to be a politician. Right. And that is the truth.
Oh, yeah.
To be a politician, you just have to be old enough, no felonies, and live in the place in which you want to run for. That's all it takes. No education, none of that. All it takes is common sense. It's all about pleasing the people. If you're in a political position, it's not about approving the budget. It's not about approving a grant for Willis Engineering or Johnson McAdams or all these other firms we see, Delta Construction. It's not about that. It's about pleasing the people. And if the people are not pleased, then, you know, something's wrong. And if people are not pleased, you're not doing your job. Because that's all your job is as a politician. That's it. Please the people. If you're not pleasing people, you're not doing your job. And in Greenwood, the majority of people cannot be pleased. A few are, but you know, that few is the ones who have made their career.
Right.
You know, they're in their 50s and 60s and, you know, late 40s.
Yeah.
Of course you're happy. You made your career.
Right.
Why would you want to change anything, you know? There's, you know, you have no ambition.
Right.
You have fulfilled your goals.
Yeah.
So I mean, allow someone else to fulfill their goals, and we'll see things change around.
Yeah. Hopefully.
You know, I don't even like to use the word hope.
No more hope.
Hope
Work.
is the enemy of hard work. Right. Hope is the enemy of hard work, you know.
Yeah.
Hope is, you know, we've been hoping forever. That's what we've been riding on the path for ever since they released us out of slavery. We've been riding on hope ever since we got here. We've been riding on hope. What we waiting on? I mean, you know.
Hope and wishing and praying.
Hope is what keeps this individual achievement thing so popular.
Yeah.
We love individual achievement. The first black this, the first black that. What about the millionth black?
Right, the mass.
What about the 100th black that has done this position? You know, let me know when it's been 1,000 black presidents. You know, let me know when it's been 1,000,000 black CEOs. You know, we're too obsessed with individual accomplishment. We need collective accomplishment. We need mass accomplishment.
Right.
And again, you know, I don't believe that's something that we'll see in our generation, but we can start the wheel to affect that change because, you know, we shouldn't be selfish.
Right.
I'm not selfish. I don't want to reap the benefits of it. I want my child to reap the benefits of it, my grandchildren. I want to lay the foundation so that they can reap the benefits of what we did now. Like we're reaping the benefits of what other people did, you know. And then you have leadership who take advantage of that. You know, they live off the name. Frederick Douglass said that men seldom eulogize the wisdom of their fathers except to excuse some folly of their own. Which means that our people in power now, our leaders, our so-called civil rights leaders, they don't use the actual wisdom of what these people were saying, everything, only when it comes to something that they want to excuse themselves from doing. Then they'll bring up a verse by Dr. King or by Malcolm X. You know?
Right.
But yeah.